Hello, and welcome back to the VinMan show. I'm the VinMan. I'm sorry I went way over my time schedule yesterday on Valentine's Day, and I trust everybody had a good Valentine's Day. I gave you good tips, guys, on how to have a fun Valentine's Day. And anyways, uh, yesterday I was talking about three of my friends that died when we were all 21 years old. That was a long time ago. That was like 45 years ago for me now. And I was telling you that you really don't remember people from what they said or from what they did. You remember people on how they make you feel. And like Jim, uh, the guy that committed suicide, he was a wild and crazy hippie. And yeah, I can visualize him, what he looked like, and I remember his name, but I don't remember hardly anything that he ever told me. And now some people might have the photographic memories that do remember that, but I'll tell you how I do remember Jim. Jim, he lived two houses away from me when we grew up. So we grew up together, and then when he got older. I went to college, and he decided to go live in the forest, and and uh, and he squatted on government forest land. Him and a couple other people, one guy and one girl, they each got a tent. He had his own teepee, and his friend had a teepee, and the girl had just a regular big tent. And if you've never been inside a teepee, they're very fascinating. It's just you know how the structure is. It goes up like this, and it comes down, and it has at the base it's around 18 foot in diameter, and then and so when you go in, you could stand up in the middle, but you can't stand up around the edges because it tapers down like this. So actually, that's where all the sleeping bags go, is around the uh, around the edges, and so the inside is the walking area. And it's I remember when I would sleep in there, when you make these teepees, you cut down a tree, which is about so big in diameter, and then you take off all the little branches, and you try and cut the branch off birdie as slick as you can, because when it rains, those the sticks, they stick out outside top of the canvas that the teepee's wrapped in, and so what happens is the water gets on those um, branches, or gets on the poles that are holding the teepee up, which are branches, big, or it's just actually trees, and and the water runs down, and and if it runs all the way down, it just runs to the outside, which is good because then we have it to where it drains to the outside. But if you didn't cut the all the little branches off nice and smoothly, when the water's going down, if it hits that branch, the drip falls off, and it hits your sleeping bag. And of course, we were up there in the winter, and it did rain, and when the water's coming down, and you're laying in your sleep bag, it's cold, and you don't want to have to get up. But but once that water starts dripping on your sleeping bag, you better get up, otherwise you're going to be sleeping in a puddle of water. Your bag will be all wet. So what you got to do is you got to get up, and you got to get your flashlight out, and then you find where that pole is, and when you see where the water's coming down, if it's dripping off here because there's a little branch that you didn't cut off perfectly, so the water come down and drip right on you. So what you got to do is you got to take your finger above it and guide it around that that branch, and then the water will just, instead of going straight down, it'll follow where you had your guided your finger. So then the water would go all the way down and go out the bottom, and not get your sleeping bag all wet. And another interesting thing about teepees is when it got cold in the winter time, and we had to bring the party inside instead of sitting out around the campfire outside in the evening. If it was raining, so he had right in the middle of his teepee, he had a wood-burning stove. And with the pipe that went up, it didn't go out through the teepee, but we'd fill that thing full of wood, and it would keep the teepee all nice and warm. But the thing is, all that smoke, you can't stand up in the from halfway up to the top. It would be all full of smoke. So when you walked around, you had to duck underneath the smoke, so the smoke was above your head, and then it was all clear, and you could breathe down here because the smoke couldn't get out uh, real fast because it was raining, and the rain kind of keeps the smoke in. Eventually, the smoke goes out of the top of the teepee. Um, but you don't want to open it up real far because otherwise the rain would be coming in. But you can open up. There's a flap up there that you can open up and let the smoke out, and that was pretty interesting. I didn't realize you could have a wood burning stove in a teepee because you definitely can't have charcoal. I lost a couple other friends. That's right, I lost a couple other real good friends in college and at the age of maybe I was only 20 at that time. Yeah, only 20. And these guys were avid campers, and they were out deer hunting, and it was cold, and they had a tent, and they had a barbecue, and the, and so at night they said, let's bring the barbecue inside the tent and warm the tent up. Well, the barbecue, the charcoals, it eats up all the oxygen, and they both died of asphyxiation. Unbelievable. Yeah, it was what was his name? Anyway, all I remember is Puffer. Yeah, Ron Puffer. Yeah, he was an aviation major. I went up flying with him a couple times in Salt Lake City. I said, Ron, we're getting in this small plane, and I shook it. It was like put together like a VW bug. It shook, and I was going, okay. I said, well, where's the parachute? He goes, nah. So you never jump out of these things. If the engine goes out, you just glide them in and land on the salt flats. And I'd say, okay. And so, anyways, he'd take me up there, and it's just a two-man airplane, and we'd be flying along, and he'd go, Vince, are you ready for some fun? I go, yeah. And he'd take a nosedive straight down, and whoa, and then he'd come out of that turn. And, boy, that was a lot of fun because, of course, I was probably pretty high, and he's trying to scare me. He scared me. But anyway, I couldn't believe that he died. Yeah, yeah, him and another friend that went to my little college there in Salt Lake City. And so anyway, that's kind of how I remember Jim, as from the teepees. Uh, Before I go on to and the way he kind of made me feel was like he made me feel like I am a mountain man. I could survive in the forest. Heck, I couldn't survive in the forest, and I think about once a week he went in and got his food stamps, and they got a bunch of food and brought it out. But the way we got meat back in those days, well, I remember one time we were going to have a party. We're going to have a bunch of hippies over, and they all play music, and it's going to get pretty wild because there's going to be a lot of smoking and probably more drinking and other stuff. Anyways, so we decided, hey, we're going to have a party. We're going to feed everybody meat. And of course, we couldn't afford meat, so what we were going to do is go hunting. And we're going to go hunting for a deer. And of course, we didn't have a license, and it was out of season, and we were going to go poach. We were going to go poach a deer. And when you go poaching, you can only take one shot, because if the forest ranger hears that one shot, he can hear the shot, but he doesn't know where it comes from. But if he hears the second shot, he can go, oh yeah, it's coming from. Then he'll buzz over there, and if you bust you for poaching, you're in big trouble. And plus, you didn't want anybody to find out that he was living in these teepees way deep in the woods, off any beaten path. And we had to get there. We had to park our cars, in a kind of a secluded spot way off the. Yeah, we pull off the road and drive about a good mile off the road on this little dirt road. And then we'd have to kind of park our cars behind a tree, and then we had to cross a stream, and then we still had to walk about a half a mile just to get to his camp. So it was pretty secluded in there once you got in there. But anyway, out hunting for these deer because we wanted to have everybody to have a steak, a deer steak at the party. And I remember we came across a herd of deer, and they were kind of down a ways. And so Jim had the rifle, and he aimed and he shot just one shot, and it went through two deers. He killed two deers with one shot. And so we had to, when you kill an animal, you got to bleed them right away. You got to go down, cut the neck, and open them up, and dump all the guts out, and that makes them a little lighter to carry when you're coming back. But yeah, you don't want the blood to stay in the arteries, because then that turns the meat bad. So as soon as you kill an animal, you have to, cut the neck and open up the guts to drain all the blood out of there. So which we did. Then we took them back and we butchered them all up, and let me tell you how we barbecued them. And the way we did that was we got a big pit, with all these rocks around a big pit, big, it probably was 5 feet in diameter. And then we put all this wood in there, and then let it burn down to coals. And then we had a chicken wire. Chicken wire, yeah. You can fix anything with chicken wire and duct tape. Anyway, we put the chicken wire across the coals and it was huge. So we had like this huge barbecue, and then we threw all these steaks on there, and oh boy, they were good. We did them, medium rare, and just everybody could have as much meat as you wanted to eat. And that was back in the day when it was very expensive to buy meat, and actually people were boycotting buying meat, and because the prices went so high. And anyways, that's how I remember Jim, as teepees and hunting and barbecuing and partying in the woods, and that's how he made me feel good. But I don't remember anything that he told me except, you can only take one shot when you're poaching a deer. I do remember that. Other than that, no, and yeah, he told me how to get the drip to stop falling on my sleeping bag. I remember that, and but anyway, and then as far as my other guy that died, my friend Lou, who died riding his bicycle down the mountain in Arizona. Well, remember I told you that he lived next door to the drug dealer, so Lou always had good drugs, and so I guess it's easiest to remember Lou. He always made you feel good. When you went over there, you're going over and you go, hey Lou, what do you got for the head? Meaning, what kind of buzz are we going to do today? And went a lot, and he always had good smoke. And then after that, it was, and so I'll tell you more about how much we got, because that, when you know a guy like that, you can buy quantity, and you get good quality, but you can buy a lot, because if you know a lot of your friends that want some, you can. So if you bought $100 worth, you could cut it in half. You could say, okay, I'm going to keep half, and you could sell the other half for $100. So it's like you're getting, you pretty much double your money on every transaction. Back then, we used to buy kilos of marijuana. That's 2.2 pounds. And then back in those days, marijuana went for $10 an ounce. So if you get a kilo for $150 and which is 32 ounces, and so you take 16 of those ounces and sell them for $10 a piece, well, you just made your money back. You got your $160 back, and you still have half the marijuana for yourselves. So we always had this free, we always had free drugs, especially free pot, and then once the word of mouth gets out that that you can get this stuff, people keep bugging you for it. So it just turned into a very interesting business thing. That's how you work on commission. If you're going to sell something, you get it, and you sell it at a fair price, but you double your money on every transaction that you make. But anyway, And for Andy, I didn't know Andy that well. So Lou, I mean, the way I remember him, oh, another way I remember Lou, he was a crazy guy. He found a gun shell, which was about the rifle casing, the brass casing, that hold, it's just full of the gunpowder, and then you put the bullet on the top of that, so the casing was about that big, and his brilliant idea was, it was empty, it was, it'd been fired, so he thought, it'd be kind of interesting to see what would happen if I filled this thing full of match heads and then stood back and started them on fire to see how big the explosion would be. So anyway, he was packing these match heads into this shell, or this cart, this brass, whatever you call them, and he's tapping them in there, and the dang thing caught on fire and blew up in his face. And man, he had all these little things in his face, and it blew his baby finger. It cut his finger. His baby finger was hanging down. Baby finger. And of course, they had to rush him to the hospital. I wasn't there, thank God. So, anyways, they rushed him to the hospital, and they got all these bits and pieces out of his face, and they sewed his finger back up so it would be like that, and instead of hanging way down. But every time he made a fist, his baby finger, which he had no use of his baby finger anymore. So if he made a fist, it would be like this. Hey, I got, and Lou, put your finger down. Nope, it can't. It's in that's the position that it's going to be in. So that was Lou, but here again, I don't remember a whole lot that he said to me, but I do remember it didn't make me feel good. So we were seeing a lot of Lou, and then Andy, he was a good skier. He was a redhead kid. How many redheads do you know? So I remember going camping with him a few times. Oh, we lived in the same dormitory at college, so that's how I got to know Andy. That's how I got to know pretty much all my friends. Was when I went away to college in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was just a small college. It only had like 1,500 kids in the whole college. My graduating class had over 1,000. So just half of the 12th grade was 1,000 kids. So we had over 2,000 kids in our, the 12th grade. And when the school I went to only had 1,500 for the whole school. So and all these people, I'd say, it was in Salt Lake City. I'd say only 20% of the kids that went there were probably from Utah. The 80% were from someplace else. So that means everybody's kind of thrown in. No one knows anybody, and that way everybody's forced to get to know everybody. So of course they got to know me quite well because we were the ones that had the wild parties, and I'll tell you about the wild party. Do I have time to go on any further? I better tell you about the wild parties later. Today was. I just wanted to remind you on how you remember people. And I'm hoping, these shows are making you feel good and you're learning something. I guess I'm a teacher because I'm teaching you to make other people feel good about you. Because otherwise they're going to remember you thinking, I don't like that guy, but hey, this guy comes across nice because he's positive attitude thinking. You got to reload that joy. You can't just say what you don't have. You got to be grateful for what you do have, and everybody knows it. And if you always go around saying, "Oh man, I should have a bigger house," or "I should have a nicer car," people pick up on that vibe, and they don't like it. But if you go around smiling instead of frowning, you're going to make a lot more friends. Anyway, I'm sure I've probably gone over my time again. Sorry about that. Catch you on the next VinMan show. See ya.